Chelsea may have built the perfect squad for Xabi Alonso, or the most complicated one. Palmer, João Pedro, Estevão, Neto and Delap were already there. Now add Morgan Rogers, Giovanni Quenda, Marco Palestra and Emmanuel Emega. Alonso can change the striker, the width and even the shape without lowering the quality. That sounds like a title-winning advantage, but a team with this many options can spend months searching for its best version. Chelsea already have the answers. Alonso's challenge is deciding which ones actually belong together, because if he finds that balance early, Chelsea can win the Premier League. If he doesn't, their biggest strength could be exactly what costs them the title. I think Chelsea's strength is not simply squad depth. It is the difference between the players Alonso can choose from. Cole Palmer remains the central figure. He can begin from the right, but his most influential actions usually come once he moves inside. From the right half space, he can receive on his left foot, combine with the striker and decide whether the attack needs a pass, a shot, or a few more seconds of control. Morgan Rogers gives Chelsea something different. Palmer often creates through his first touch and decision-making. Rogers is more likely to receive the ball, move past the first challenge, and carry it towards the defensive line. That can be valuable against teams who defend deep. Moving possession from side to side does not always disturb a compact defence. Sometimes a player has to carry the ball forward and force a defender to leave his position. Once a midfielder steps out to stop Rogers, a passing lane can open. If a centre-back moves forward, space can appear behind him. That is why Rogers could complement Palmer rather than compete with him. Palmer can control attacks from the right half space. Rogers can make Chelsea more direct from the left or through the middle. One can create the final pass. The other can make the movement that allows the pass to happen. Chelsea also have several striker profiles. João Pedro can leave the front line, receive between the lines and help Chelsea play through pressure. He can combine with Palmer and Rogers, giving them another technical player around the ball. Delap offers a more physical reference. He can stay high, compete with centre-backs and give Chelsea a direct pass when building through midfield becomes difficult. Emega adds another type of threat. His runs behind the defence could become useful against teams who hold a higher line. The striker does not always need to be heavily involved in possession. Sometimes his positioning improves the space available for everyone else. If Delap or Emega keeps the centre-backs close to their own goal, Palmer and Rogers may receive with more room in front of them. Out wide, Alonso has another set of choices. Neto can remain near the touchline and attack the full-back directly. Estevão can begin outside before moving into central combinations. Quenda can play higher as a winger or start deeper as a wing-back. Palestra can provide width from full-back and allow the attacker ahead of him to move inside. These are not simple like-for-like replacements. Changing one of these players can change Chelsea's entire attacking approach. Against a high defensive line, Alonso can select more pace and running. Against a compact block, he can place more technical players between the lines. Against a physical opponent, he can choose a striker capable of occupying the centre-backs. If Chelsea need more control, he can keep one wide player deeper rather than sending both wing-backs forward. That variety matters across a Premier League season. Chelsea will face teams who press high. They will face teams who defend around their own penalty area. They will also face matches where the game becomes direct, physical, and difficult to control. One attacking plan will not solve every problem. Alonso now has players suited to most of those situations. The difficult part is not finding an option, it is finding the right combination. Chelsea have not played a match under Alonso yet, so it would be wrong to present any formation as confirmed. Their first pre-season game under him is scheduled for July 28th, which means the Chelsea system is still a projection based on his previous work. At Leverkusen, his most familiar starting structure was a 3-4-2-1. The three centre-backs provided a stable base in possession. Two central midfielders helped the team play through pressure. The wing-backs stayed high and provided width. That allowed the two attacking midfielders to operate inside, closer to the striker and the goal. That structure could suit Palmer. Instead of asking him to remain near the touchline, Alonso could use him as the right-sided attacking midfielder. Palmer would be closer to goal and closer to the striker. Palestra or Quenda could then provide the width outside him. The relationship is easy to understand. Palmer moves inside. The wide player stays outside. Chelsea keep the pitch stretched without forcing their best creator to spend the match near the touchline. Rogers could operate from the other side, but his role would not need to mirror Palmer's. Parma can receive and control the attack, Rodgers can receive and drive through it. If the opposition blocks Parma's passing lanes, Rodgers gives Chelsea another way of progressing through the middle. If a midfielder steps out to stop Rodgers, Parma may receive in the space that opens. The striker selection would then affect both of them. With João Pedro, Chelsea could form a fluid attacking triangle. He can drop towards midfield while Parma and Rodgers move around him. One player comes short, another attacks the space created by that movement. That could work well against teams who press aggressively or leave gaps between midfield and defence. Chelsea would still need someone threatening the defensive line. If João Pedro drops, Parma moves inside and Rodgers also comes towards possession, the attack can become crowded in front of the centre-backs. That is where Delap or Omega could improve the shape. They may touch the ball less during the build-up, but by staying high, they force the defenders to remain closer to their own goal. That gives Parma and Rodgers more space underneath. This is why selecting the striker changes more than one position. It changes the space available to the entire front line. The midfield partnership will also determine how aggressive Chelsea can be. Caicedo looks suited to the defensive demands of this system. If the wingbacks move forward, somebody has to protect the spaces they leave behind. Caicedo can cover ground, win duels, and stop counter-attacks before they reach the back line. But Chelsea cannot expect him to solve every transition alone. The midfielder beside him has to stay connected. If Enzo Fernandez moves higher to support the attack, Chelsea gain another passer around the penalty area. That can help against a deep block. It also leaves Caicedo with more ground to defend when possession is lost. Against a team with quick counter-attacking players, Alonso may need the midfield to be more controlled. The back three would also face different responsibilities. When a wing-back attacks, the outside centre-back may have to defend a large space near the touchline. He needs to know when to step forward and when to protect the channel behind him. The central defender has to control the line, while the midfield must remain close enough to help if the first press is beaten. This is why the system cannot be judged one position at a time. Selecting an aggressive wing-back affects the midfielder beside Caicedo. Selecting João Pedro affects the movements of Parma and Rodgers. Using two attacking wing-backs affects the defenders behind them. Every choice changes the responsibilities around it. A good example of Alonso managing those connections came against Bayern Munich in February 2024. He left his usual attacking wingback Jeremy Frimpong out of the starting lineup, used the more defensive Josip Stanisic, and selected Nathan Tella to stretch Bayern higher up the pitch. Leverkusen changed personnel and adjusted the plan, but the roles remained clear. They controlled the spaces Bayern wanted to use and won 3-0. That is the type of flexibility Chelsea need, not change for the sake of it, a clear adjustment designed to solve a specific problem. Chelsea have several players who naturally want to move inside. Parma does it from the right. Rodgers wants to receive centrally. João Pedro likes dropping towards the ball. Estevam can also move inside from a wide starting position. Each movement makes sense on its own. The risk appears when too many of them happen together. Imagine João Pedro dropping into midfield. Parma moves inside from the right. Rodgers comes towards the ball from the left. Chelsea would have three talented players close enough to combine. But the opposition centre-backs would no longer have anybody forcing them to defend the space behind. They could step forward, the midfield could become more compact. Chelsea would have plenty of technical quality around the ball, but very little depth. That can make an attack easier to defend. The same issue could appear on the right. Parma wants to move inside. Estevam may also want to receive in that area. Quenda can carry the ball centrally. Palestra could be attacking from wing-back. All four players are useful. Using them together is different. If Parma plays as the right-sided number 10 and Palestra provides the width, the responsibilities are clear. Parma comes inside, Palestra stays outside. But if another attacker also moves centrally from that side, Chelsea may place several players in the same zone. That doesn't automatically create more chances. It can simply give the opposition more players to press in one area. The Europa League final between Leverkusen and Atalanta showed why the right balance matters. Atalanta defended man for man, blocked Leverkusen's usual connections through midfield and followed Wirtz when he dropped deeper. When Leverkusen played more directly, Atalanta's defenders were ready to intercept. Leverkusen had plenty of technical quality, but they could not create the clean relationships their system usually relied on. They lost 3-0. That match does not prove Alonso's system is flawed. It shows that flexibility still needs a clear reference point. If every Chelsea attacker moves towards possession, opponents can follow them, compress the space and force Chelsea to play in front of the defence. A striker staying high may improve Parma more than another technical player coming short. A winger holding the width may create more space than another player moving centrally. A midfielder staying deeper may give Chelsea's attackers more freedom because the defensive protection is already in place. The strongest collection of individual players is not always the strongest team. There is an obvious counter-argument to all of this. Chelsea are competing across several competitions. Injuries will happen. Players will lose form. Alonso will need different profiles, and having several options is clearly better than having none. I agree with that. The issue is not rotation. The issue is changing too many relationships at once. Replacing João Pedro with Delap changes the striker profile. That is manageable. Changing the striker, both wing-backs and the positions around Parma in the same match creates a much bigger adjustment. Chelsea's depth should allow Alonso to refresh the team without rebuilding the entire structure. There is also a defensive cost to consider. In a 3-4-2-1, both wing-backs can move high. The two attacking midfielders will advance. The striker occupies the defensive line. That can leave 5 players ahead of the ball. There is nothing wrong with that when the distances behind them are controlled. The danger appears when those distances become too large. If both wing-backs attack, Parma and Rodgers move inside and Enzo pushes forward, Caicedo could be left protecting a huge area. One poor pass could remove 5 or 6 Chelsea players from the game. Caicedo may stop the first counter-attack. He cannot be expected to stop all of them. Alonso's Leverkusen attacked with numbers, but their aggression was normally supported by structure. The outside centre-backs knew when to step forward. The midfield stayed connected to the defence. When possession was lost, the nearest players could press immediately because they were already close enough to do it. Chelsea will need the same discipline. That is especially important with new players learning each other's movements. Palestra needs to know when Parma will move inside. Quenda needs to recognise when the defender behind him will overlap or remain deeper. Rodgers needs to understand when the striker is coming short and when he should run beyond him. Those relationships improve through repetition. Chelsea's depth gives Alonso reasons to rotate. His system gives him reasons to protect certain partnerships. He has to do both. Chelsea can remain unpredictable to opponents without becoming unpredictable to themselves. The first decision is Parma's role. Chelsea should build around the areas where he is most effective. He can move during the match, but the players around him need to understand where their main creator normally wants to receive. If Parma moves inside, somebody outside him has to provide the width consistently. The second decision is the striker. Alonso does not need one striker for every opponent. He does need a clear reason behind every selection. Against one team, Chelsea may need João Pedro to help them play through midfield. Against another, they may need Delap or Emega to hold the centre-backs deeper and protect the space for Parma and Rodgers. If the striker drops, somebody has to run beyond him. If the striker stays high, Chelsea need to use the space underneath. The third decision is the defensive core. Alonso can rotate the attackers more easily than the players protecting the structure. The centre-backs need to understand who steps forward. The wing-backs need to know who covers behind them. The midfielder beside Caicedo has to recognise when he can support the attack and when he needs to remain deeper. Those decisions become quicker when the same players work together regularly. That matters because a title race rewards clarity. The matches that test Chelsea may not only be against Manchester City, Arsenal or Liverpool. They may be the games where Chelsea have most of the possession against a compact defensive block. Rodgers has little room to carry, the strikers have no space behind. Parma receives with several defenders around him. Chelsea move the ball across the pitch but struggle to get inside the penalty area. Those matches are rarely solved by placing every talented attacker on the pitch. They are solved through familiar movements. The wide player knows when to stay outside, the striker knows which defender to occupy, Parma knows where his next passing option will appear, Caicedo knows there is enough protection around him if the attack breaks down. Chelsea do not need the same 11 every week, they need the same basic understanding. Alonso can then adjust the details. A more physical striker for one match, a natural winger for another, a more cautious wing-back against a dangerous transition team. The supporting pieces can change. The foundation should remain. That is how Chelsea's flexibility becomes useful across 38 matches. not by changing everything, by changing the right things. Chelsea have enough quality to win the Premier League. The creativity is there, the pace is there, the physical options are there, and Alonso has more tactical solutions than most managers in the league. But I would not call Chelsea favourites yet. We still need to see which players form the core of the team. We need to see which striker gives Palmer and Rodgers the right amount of space. And we need to see whether Chelsea can attack with aggressive wingbacks without leaving Caicedo and the defence exposed. Alonso does not need to use every option Chelsea have given him. He needs to identify which options belong together. If he finds those combinations early, Chelsea's flexibility could make them one of the best teams in the league. They could change the profile of the team without losing the structure underneath it. But if Alonso spends half the season searching for the right version, the same flexibility could work against them. Too many players may move towards the ball, the midfield may become too open, and the lineup may change again before those problems are properly solved. Chelsea can become several different types of team this season. To win the league, one of those versions has to become reliable. That is why their biggest strength could also be the thing that costs them the title.